Welcome, everyone. I'm Rachel Siegel, the Director of Strategic Programs at Illuminate. Welcome back to our Crown Jewel Conversation Series. Thank you for joining us today from all over the world. Illuminate is a catalyst for gender justice and social innovation. We invest in the leadership of Jewish women, social entrepreneurs who are devoting their lives to tackling society's most pressing issues affecting women and other marginalized communities throughout the United States, Israel, and around the globe. We are building a global network of changemakers. Each year, we select 10 extraordinary Jewish women leaders. We call them Jewels. Jewish, entrepreneurial, women, executives, and leaders to take part in the collective. This cohort-based leadership advancement program fosters connections, encourages partnerships, provides resources, and a curriculum tailored to meet their needs. This enables the leaders to maximize their impact. Illuminate is also a philanthropic accelerator dedicated to educating women philanthropists on intentional and strategic giving, providing opportunities to learn about emergent social issues, and leveraging communal dollars to make impactful investments in social change. Philanthropists of all financial capacities and levels of experience are welcome to participate, no matter where they are physically located. We believe that the integration of activism and philanthropy is essential to creating systemic change. When you support Illuminate, you not only support 40 organizations, very soon to be 50, run by phenomenal women, you are part of a movement. Together, we are advancing a deeply feminist response to global social challenges and creating a bright future for all. Our conversation today will allow you to get to know one of these extraordinary women in this movement. Shoshanna Keats Jaskoll is the co-founder and director of Chokhmat Nashim, an organization fighting extremism and raising the voice of Jewish women. Born and raised in Lakewood, New Jersey, she describes herself as an accidental activist. Focused on the erasure and marginalization of women, Shoshanna's articles, podcasts, and lectures raise awareness of the danger of extremism and how the community can fight it. She has spoken in Knesset committee meetings and held protests outside the religious court, demanding justice for women. Her writing has been featured in the Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, Tablet, Washington Examiner, and more. She speaks internationally on the importance of a moderate and healthy community, how to be an effective activist, and her life in Israel. If, like Shoshanna and Illuminate, you believe that women are the key to making lasting change, then you are in the right place today. After the conversation, we will open the floor up for questions. You can write any questions you have in the chat or hold them, and you can ask them later on. For now, we've muted everyone in order to avoid background noise. We encourage you to turn on your camera so we can see you. Feel free to eat while you listen. Now I'm pleased to introduce the president of Illuminate, Rachel Weinstein.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And hi, Shoshanna. I'm so happy to be in conversation with you today. We schedule these conversations so far in advance. And while all the work that you Jewels are doing is so important to advancing social change, there are moments where the conversations occur in this moment of urgency. And I think we all have been feeling this moment of urgency around Israel, and we're really, really eager to hear your perspectives on what's happening and what you're doing for the feminist movement there. So let's back up, though, because as Rachel said, you were born in New Jersey. You made Aliyah to Israel 18 years ago. Can you tell us a bit about that journey and how you became involved in the Orthodox feminist movement there?
Sure. First of all, it's so wonderful to be here. And I think that in case I forget to say it later, I think that the partnership we have with Illuminate is so special because you see us as partners, not as grantees, but partners in a joint movement and a joint change movement, and you trust us to be your partners in that. And I feel very little that model is so unique that I want to say it. I want to acknowledge it before we get into all the things that I'm going to talk about, because it makes a difference in us being able to do our work. And I'm speaking for other women at the moment. The partnership model, and not just a grant or grantee model, is a phenomenal one. And I want to thank you. So I wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. It's a privilege to partner with you, really.
Thank you. I think I'm a big believer in collaborator, and I think only through collaboration, especially female collaboration, are we going to make the change that we want to see. And I will go back up, I will back up a little bit, but I also think that's the key to seeing the change that we want to see today in Israel and all around the world. So I was born in Lakewood, New Jersey. I always say that my mother's parents were survivors of the Shoah. And I think as I age, and I'm getting emotional, but as I age, I see how much that affected me and who I am. And it's a very strange place to recognize, recognize the people behind you in the work that you're doing, even though it's very, very different. I'm not, thank God, fighting Nazis, but I am fighting for my people. And I feel them behind me very much so. And so born and raised in Lakewood, New Jersey, back when Lakewood still had a Reform, a conservative, a modern Orthodox, and a yeshiva community. And a Jew was a Jew, and we said good Shabbos to each other. It didn't matter what we did or did not have on our heads, or if we wore pants or skirts. I wasn't religious growing up. My mom wore pants. Oh my God. and she's walking the dogs and us in our strollers in her jeans and speaking to the Rosh Yeshiva, which is the head of the yeshiva, Rav Cutler, in Yiddish, because my mother's first language is Yiddish. And so that's the Jewish community I grew up with. And for me, there was never a hierarchy. There was never a better or worse. And so I grew up not religious, but I went to the day school. Long story, or rather short story. My mother wanted me to be informed and make my own choice. That was the choice. That was the story. And I grew up, and my mom, because her parents were survivors, she wanted me to know about the Holocaust. She was also a Holocaust. She is alive. She was a Holocaust educator, and she felt it was important for me to go on the March of the Living. I said to her, what else can I possibly know, right? Oh my goodness, how stupid we are as teenagers. So I go on the March of the Living, and I walk through Auschwitz, and I see the ash pile in Majdanek. And I went into the Jewish Polish cemetery that was completely destroyed. And I realized at that moment, standing there, that even in death, they're never going to leave us alone. And then and there at 17, I decided I was never going to live by the grace of a foreign government again. And I came back and then we went to Israel at Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom HaZikaron, which is literally the most incredible time to be in Israel, Independence Day and Memorial Day. And I came home at 17 and told my poor mother, who had just sent me to know about my heritage, that I was moving to Israel, and that was it. And she said, as long as you finish college first. So I finished college, and I made Aliyah. And I met a boy from New Jersey in Eilat, and got married, moved back to Jersey, been here for the past 15 years. That's the short version of my story, of how I got to be here for the past 15 years. But if you want me to jump into how I got into this space, I can do that as well.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So my third Aliyah was to a little town called Beit Shemesh. Now, I can't see all of your faces. Usually when I say this, I ask who's heard of Beit Shemesh and what they know about it. But if you've heard about Beit Shemesh, you've probably heard about the religious extremism in Beit Shemesh. So after my Aliyah glasses wore off, which is, when I say Aliyah glasses, I mean, oh my God, the mail doesn't come on Saturdays. And oh my goodness, they say Happy New Year in September and not in January. All those things that a Jew gets so excited about, right? When it's not Christmas time and it's not Sundays or their holy day. So then I started to see that all around me, women's images were disappearing. And it's funny, it's like when you're pregnant, everybody's pregnant, all of a sudden you see all the pregnant people. So when you start to realize that there's no pictures of women, so now you're looking for it everywhere, right? That's the lens I started to look through. And then my daughters came home one day from school and told me that they were told to sit in the back of the bus because that is where girls belong. And you do not tell an American to go to the back of the bus. That is way not okay. And my girls, thank God, are my girls, and they did not go, but it did start me on a journey. I started to look around me and to understand what was happening. And can I share my screen and just show a few of the examples so that people understand what I'm talking about when I say that I saw women and girls disappearing? Is that okay?
Yes, of course, please.
Okay. Hopefully I will not screw this up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if it's blocked or you can see the whole screen, but on the right side,
Yeah.
you'll see 4 little adorable boys, Haredi
Yeah.
boys. And it says, Klalit hachi tova lenashim, kol shirotek klalit betkufat trom leda v'haleda. And it basically means that the Klalit healthcare system is the best for women for all your labor and delivery needs. And yet there's no women there. There's adorable four little adorable boys. And in the middle, you can see exclusive to Maccabi, local gynecology, family emergency, and a sweet boy with his teddy bear. I'm not sure which one of them needs the gynecological care. And this is the one that really, really knocked me off my socks. This on the side, my left, whatever, the screen's left, is a advertisement for Purim costumes, where all the girls' faces, not the boys' faces, the girls' faces have been blurred. And these were the things, how do I go to my next slide? Okay, well. Okay, so these are the things that I'm seeing delivered to me. I don't have to explain everyone, you could see. There's a boy and a headless girl. There's a boy and a headless girl. And even when we talk about those who started to erase women, on the right, you can see, on the left, you can see the toy that has the plastic girls on it. But for a different magazine, even they were not okay to show, and they literally removed the plastic mother and daughters. Okay, so these are the things that I was seeing constantly around me. And then the more I spoke about it, the more people started to send them into me. So this is an advertisement for laundry detergent, only the boys. This is a dedication for a Rebbitzin with her husband's picture on it. And lest you think this is only an Israeli problem, here you have on the right, the Queen Elizabeth was taken off the coin in one of the ads in England. And in New York, Dr. Marina Klotzman was turned into a little girl. So this was something that started to happen all throughout the Orthodox world, and it was getting worse and worse. So I started to write about what I was seeing because the Times of Israel had just opened up their blogs, and I was one of the first bloggers before everyone else was a blogger. And it actually just gave me a wonderful platform to start talking about these things, and people were just writing more and more and more. So I was literally in the thick of things, and there's a lot of other stuff going on in Bet Shemesh. There's no time to talk about it, but I can only tell you that I was literally living in the thick of the most extreme sects of Judaism that were practicing misogyny in the name of Torah. And being religious, I know what is halacha and what is not halacha. And there is no Jewish law is halacha, right? So there is no halacha saying that a woman can't be seen. There is no halacha saying that a picture should be taken down. But I think that, I'm going to let you ask the next question, but I think what's really important is that people understand, because a lot of people say to me, oh, what's the big deal about a picture? Now, you are a group of very smart women who understand the importance of representation, but I also want to just draw out the picture a little bit and say, what happens when we allow an extremist point of view to be normalized is that there is no end, right? Halacha gives you guidelines, right? I don't have to wear a bag over my head. That is actually it's forbidden really in actual Orthodox Judaism. But when you go beyond halacha, when you go beyond Jewish law, there's no end. And so men start to think and to believe that they are expecting or are expected and are allowed to expect a woman-free society. And there are modesty signs put up. You have to dress a certain way. And there are segregated staircases. You can't be here. And then the last thing I want to show you before I, just to round out the picture, and actually I'm just going to pick this up for you. When you are expecting to never see females and you think it's your right never to see females, then you start to take the law into your own hands. And you can see that this picture, which is actually of the Shalva band, it's a band of disabled boys and girls, was just graffitied over because, well, it's not okay, right? And the name and the word Isha, which is woman, was graffitied over in my town. I saw this building myself on a health clinic for women, and they wound up moving the health clinic. And I will tell you that I was personally spit on and called a shiksa. My friend had rocks thrown at her because she was where she shouldn't have been. And when I saw all of this happening, and this is 12 years ago when it started, right? I realized no one else is seeing this because I'm literally the canary in the coal mine. I'm at the epicenter that's just going to start rippling out when we allow it to be normalized. And I've written about it for many years, and it took me many years, but we were able to finally make, I think, a critical mass of people understand that not only is this happening, it's getting worse, and it is our responsibility as the religious community to stop it.
Wow, that's a lot. And I mean, the first thing I have to say is thank you, because like if I can tell you the anger that is stirred in my belly, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this room of seeing those images, and yet you jump into that space, right? And say that it's not okay, and are writing and advocating for change. And I'm sure that these visual manifestations of hatred and, erasure and all these things that you're saying are, just like I said, the visual representation of other things that are happening. So just so that we can clearly understand, what are some of the social issues that are facing women in Israel, and particularly Orthodox women in Israel at the moment?
So it's a really fascinating dichotomy. Why do I say that? Because in Israel, a woman can be Supreme Court Justice, she can be Prime Minister of Israel. There's nothing barring her. And in fact, the head of the Supreme Court is a female. And we, as you know, we had a female Prime Minister. At the same time, even if a woman is the head Supreme Court Justice, she cannot divorce her husband if he says no. And so there is a very serious cognitive dissonance, especially when you try to explain to people that women's rights in Israel are an issue, because people who only see things from one angle will point to all of these things that are true. They're true. And yet there is a whole nother lens that we need to be looking through that a lot of people don't realize. And I would say even people in this country don't realize, everybody's been in the streets for the past 17 weeks, 18 weeks at this point. I've been in the streets for 12 years, right? I've been saying we have a problem. I've been out there. I am actually sitting back the past few weeks with my feet up on the couch on Saturday nights because, girl, I have done that and I don't need to be there. Y'all millions can go and take care of it now. Seriously, like, here's the baton. I have the whiskey. I'll see you tomorrow. I've literally been screaming about this for years. So on the one hand, I'm very happy that there's people on the streets. On the other hand, I'm like, where have you been? So, and I understand it's very hard. I live and breathe this. I live in the epicenter. That is why I know what's going on. And you know what? It's really hard to care about everything all the time. It's a lot. I don't expect everyone to know this. I don't expect everyone to care about everything all the time. But to answer your question, we want all of us Israel to be a Jewish and democratic state, right? And yet we have to acknowledge there's real tension between those two values. And it's not something that is easily compromised on, because sometimes those things go head to head, right? There are people who will tell you, Israel is a Jewish supremacist state because Jews have certain privileges that no other religion does. Well, it's true. If you're a Jew, you can be a citizen of this country, barring being a horrible criminal, and even then you can probably be a citizen of this country. At the same time, our Jewish values say, but part of being a Jewish state is being a haven for Jews. That is what it is. And so we who want to be proud of Israel have to acknowledge that it's not always going to be perfectly one or perfectly the other. And that is what you're seeing on the streets. You are seeing people who have very different visions of what the Jewish state is supposed to look like. And you're also seeing people who are fed up with certain things that they are affected by on both sides. So if I can just switch my hat for 1 second, and I just want to give you a perspective you probably don't get. Normally, I am criticizing the Haredi community. I want to take 2 minutes and defend or explain some of the things in the Haredi community, because I think people don't know. And when you don't know your opposition, what their motivations are, what their challenges are, you cannot come to an agreement. There's just no way. You have to understand it, even if you don't agree with it. So I just want to say that when the state started, the Torah world had been nearly decimated by the Holocaust. People have to understand that that is what happened. And when ultra-Orthodox came, and when the Haredi people came, and community came, and Ben-Gurion was asking them for support of creating a Jewish state, they said, we are not fighters. We are survivors from a shtetl. We are trying to rebuild our, and Ben-Gurion gave 400 exemptions from the army for Torah scholars. That's all there were, 400. I don't think anyone in this Zoom, well, I don't want to make assumptions. I would imagine that most people in the Zoom would be okay with 400 Torah scholars having exemption from the army, or even 4,000 for that matter. But what happened was, with those exemptions came restrictions. The Haredi community, they're not allowed to work till they're 27 years old. By the time they're 27 years old, they've got 2 to 3 kids because they get married really young. So you have a recipe for poverty because they're not allowed to work with those exemptions. Now, people in the streets can call them leeches, they can call them lazy, they can call them whatever they want. But at the end of the day, that's not going to fix anything, right? So we have to understand that someone who's wearing a shtreimel and a long coat in 95-degree weather, we may think, what is wrong with you? We left the shtetl, stop speaking Yiddish. But for them, that's literally taking off the clothing of their ancestors and betraying all that their ancestors fought for and sacrificed for when they sat in those ghettos, when they fought the Cossacks, when they died at the hands saying Shema Yisrael because they were killed for being Jews. And we have to accept that is their worldview, where they came from. This is the restrictions they've been given. We have one state where we live together. Let's figure it out. Now, I think it's important to say that because of what's happening on the streets, and a lot of people don't know these things. At the same time, I will not excuse the hijacking of my religion and saying women can't have rights in the name of Torah. So there's a lot, right? There's a lot. And that hard work comes with recognizing all this stuff that we have to deal with. And part of my job is knowing where I can make change, where I can't make change, who I need to respect and speak to, and who I'll never agree with.
Yeah. So interesting. And, as you said, you've been out there, for well over a decade doing this work, and now sort of people are catching up to you. So, given the length of time you've been in Israel and given the work that you're doing, how do you see the current state of affairs, and how has it or has it not changed? Where are we?
I think the problem we have right now, look, everything is from my perspective.
Of course,
right?
of course.
I'll try to give you a little bit of a wider lens, but from my perspective, we have currently a right-wing government. We have 2 problems. We have a completely right-wing government, and we have a prime minister trying to save his own ass. In my opinion, if Bibi was not there, most of this would not be a problem. He is a massive problem when it comes to the judicial reform. Should I back up? Okay. The government currently wants to significantly overhaul the judicial system. Currently, the Supreme Court has the final say on what is and what is not legal because we don't have a constitution. It's a big problem not having a constitution. And it goes back to what I said before about us being a Jewish and democratic state. They couldn't agree on it. It was a big balagan, and we were busy fighting wars and it never got done. So because we don't have a constitution, we have what's called basic laws. Basic laws, I don't know how many there are. I think 11 or 12, I don't remember. My daughter's in law school, so she'll be able to tell me, I hope. I had to put that in there, of course. So, we have these basic laws that enshrine people's rights. So for example, the basic law of humanity and dignity and respect for each person, I think is what the long title is, basically says that everybody has the same rights. Everybody in the country has the right to health, has the right to representation, has the right to live, blah, 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 blah. The problem is that some of these sometimes can come in conflict with religion, first of all, right? And also, by the way, not just our religion. The Bedouin have polygamy. In our country, currently, it's illegal to have 2 wives or 2 husbands. And yet the Bedouin community does it all the time. There's even a Bedouin MK sitting in the government who has 2 or 4 wives. I don't remember. And so it's a very we're very, very structured, and we're very also still a young country that's kind of figuring itself out. So basically the Supreme Court, and I'm not an expert on this, so I'm going to give you the overview and you can read more about it. But the Supreme Court basically took a lot of extra rights to itself to basically say, we have the final, everything is, Aaron Barak said, everything is legislatable, and we are the final say. And people have a problem with that because they're like, well, but we don't elect you, right? Like the judges appoint themselves, like the kind of the judges appoint other judges. It's not from the people. And so a lot of the people feel that they're not represented at all, especially a lot of Mizrahi Jews, Middle Eastern Jews. They feel that it's very elite, very Ashkenazi, and they're not represented. The religious people feel the same. Many religious people feel the same way. So I guess what I'm saying is there was a massive shift towards judiciary, and now the government wants to take it and put the shift back in the elected government. The problem is they've gone way too far. And one of the things they want to do, for example, is have an override law, which is 61 out of 120 MKs can have the final say on a law, regardless of what the Supreme Court says. That is a nightmare, according to 90% of the country. Most people, even people who want judicial reform, know that that's not okay. It's just ridiculous. I don't have to explain why. Except I will tell you from one aspect, even why it's worse. Even why it's even worse, because there's 2 government parties, Shas and UTJ, both Haredi, who have no women, even though it is illegal, my friends, according to the Supreme Court, to have political parties without women. It's done anyway. So they together have 16 MKs, which is well over 10%. That will always be Haredi men, will never have any women, and will only be from one perspective. So you can understand why people are in the streets saying, excuse me, no, the government is not going to, with 61 MKs, be able to override the Supreme Court. And I would also add that most people couldn't even tell you as much as I just told you. And I'm saying that not to say that people are stupid. I'm saying that to say that there's so much rhetoric. I'm sure you can understand what I mean in America. In the United States of America, there's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of talk and a lot of anger and a lot of identity politics. And so you'll have people who are out in the streets because they're right, and people who are out in the streets because they're left, and they'll just say, but this is my camp. We're very tribal people. Specifically for women, it's bad because aside from the fact that, as you know, what I just mentioned about the MKs, they also want to give more authority to rabbinic courts. Now, why is it bad to give authority to rabbinic courts? I'm a Jewish woman. I'm a religious woman. What's the problem? Well, in Jewish law, women don't inherit. In Jewish law, women can't be a judge, they can't be judges. In Jewish law, in some cases, women can't be witnesses. And so there is an automatic lack of representation. There is an automatic, I don't know if I want to say bias or if I want to say unfair advantage that men have in the court that is just endemic into the system. And even though that what they're saying is, but the only people who would go to these courts for their to resolve their issues are people who agree to do it. Well, how much freedom does a woman in the Haredi or even a very religious Atilumi community have to say, no, I don't want to go to the religious courts, I want to go to the secular courts? She would automatically be branded as leaving her community. And so people really don't, I think men, because men don't understand what life is like for a woman, men don't understand what Judaism is like for women. And so not because they're evil people, but just because they literally don't have our experiences, they don't understand how bad that is. I think that, and there's more. This for the last thing I'll say, which is really, really important, is that in the name of tolerance, people want also segregated days of national parks, meaning segregated by gender, right? They want men's hours and women's hours, not all day, all the time, but maybe 1 day a week, or 1 day a week from 8 to 3, it'll be boys, and 1 day from 3 to 9, whatever it is. They want there to be services for their community because they say, we can't go. We men cannot go when there are women in bikinis. We just can't. So why should we, who are also part of the public, who are also people who live here, citizens, why can't we have days when we can go? And they're playing on the value of tolerance. But I can tell you, as someone who studied this and who literally lived it, that I found one place that was gender segregated outside of an Orthodox synagogue, where it was equally divided between men's space and women's space in terms of physical space, in terms of quality of space, and in terms of access. One place, and that's the grave of the Rambam in Tiberias, which is it's segregated down the middle, but literally a carbon copy on each side. Every other time, the women have the inferior position, they have the inferior access, they have the inferior services. There's no question about it. And so if you ask me, and people ask me, Shoshanna, why don't you want there to be segregated spaces? Why wouldn't you be okay with giving services to people who need them? And I say, because it has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is never done equally. And when there's a decision, someone has to surrender, someone has to, as using the Hebrew word, someone has to compromise. It's always the women being asked to compromise every single time. And, excuse me, but nothing in the Torah says that you have to have women in the back of the bus or women in the back of anything outside of an Orthodox synagogue. Okay, I need a drink of water now.
I gotta say, I love your fire. Like, I just love it. I mean, your passion is palpable and amazing. And thank you for explaining a bit about the judicial system. I mean, of course, people are following it and some may be better versed than others, but I think it's really helpful. And I'm just going to give a plug for the cross-reference of this fabulous library of interviews that we're building. But, in conversations with Susan Weiss, who was in our first cohort, we learned a lot about how, the judiciary is also like all the family law when it comes to divorce and marriages and who can marry and all that. That's all within that sphere too. And so without women being able to have a voice there, there is real discrimination. And if you want to learn more about that, you can look in our library on our website and check that out. We're giving this sort of 30,000 foot perspective on where we are in Israel. I want to get a little more tachlis and in the weeds and just hear a little more specifically about what is the work of Chochmat Nashim and what you're most proud of that you're working on right now.
Oh, good questions. Okay. So first of all, I just to zoom out about our work, I would say one thing that we realized early on is that, as I said before, it's already illegal not to have women on a party, right? On a political party, and yet it happens. And as we've seen in the past 2 years, 3 years, governments change all the time, right? So you could pass a law and it can be knocked down, or you can win a Supreme Court case and it won't matter. The one place that change does tofes, it catches, it stays, is when the community demands it or rejects it. And so Chokhmat Nashim has always decided and always chosen to work with the community. And I will say there are amazing organizations working on lobbying in the Knesset and amazing organizations working in the courts. They didn't need us, but where there was a lack, significantly was getting that word to the community, right? So when the community cares that there's no women on these political parties, so then we will hit them where the vote counts, right? And that's where Esther Shoshan comes in, where she has tens of thousands of women who understand that they're not being represented, then they're not going to vote for the Haredi parties. When you have a community that refuses to purchase magazines or publications that don't show women, that's when it hits them. So we as Chokhmat Nashim have been writing, podcasting, speaking, explaining why these things matter, why a picture is not just a picture, why removing women and girls from magazines and representation affects their health, physical and mental and emotional health. It impacts their parnasa, their livelihood. If you can't advertise next to your smiling dentist, I actually have a bunch of examples. I don't know how far we are on time, so I don't know if you want me to show them, but I have a lot of examples of women not being able to advertise next to men. There's like, smiling dentist and then somebody's name, and who are you going to go to? The person we know about advertising anyway. It really does impact not only women and girls, but also boys and men. Why are boys and men suddenly demanding segregated spaces when they never had before? Why are weddings, which was like one of the best ways people met their matches, completely segregated now? Because it's a never-ending. People call slippery slope. I say it was a cliff we're falling off of. I mean, I don't see no slope. I see a straight shot down. So Chokhmat Nashim has been speaking about this for a long time. And then beautifully, someone called me up and she said, I'm a PR representative and I have clients and I want that, and they want to use pictures of Jewish women, and they don't exist. If you Google Jewish women, you're going to find women of the wall and one lady in Brooklyn who's pushing a stroller with her baby who's now married with kids, because there's no visible representation of Orthodox women. She said, I need you to make a photo bank. I go, I am a writer, I'm an activist, I am not a photographer. No. Corona hits, 2 years later, she calls me up again. She goes, no, you really need to do this. And I said to her, I'll tell you what, if the community wants this, and if the community is willing to do this with me, I'll do it. So I literally posted on Facebook, 3 days of photo shoots, one amazing photo bank. Let's put women back in the picture. Sign up here to put your face where your values are. And I just posted it on Facebook. And in 2 days, we had 250 responses from women and men all around the world saying, yes, I want a model, or yes, I'm a photographer, or I'm a makeup artist, I'm a hairstylist, or I have a great location, come and take pictures by me. And I don't know if you can see very well behind me, this is not a virtual background, this is a real background of, these are actual pictures from the Jewish Life Photo Bank, which you are welcome to www.jewishlifephotos.com, where we have over, I think at this point, 2,000 images of Jewish life, Orthodox couples, families, girls, boys, disabled, B'nai Menashe. So far, we've gotten photo shoots in Paris, London, Baltimore, New York, Israel, and we'll come anywhere, so please invite us, where we are very pleased to give stock photos for people to use. And I'm happy to say that we have newspapers, what do you call them? Yeah, newspapers, online, when Jewish Times of Israel, the Jewish Press, whatever, who use them, and a lot of private companies and businesses use them, and we're trying to get it out there more, so please, everyone here is welcome to have a discount. You can use them, share it with your friends and family, please, and use the pictures. Why? Because, and I will tell you this, we made a calendar this year that is just amazing. And when I put this calendar together, someone said to me, she called me up crying, and she said, I never realized how I missed seeing women and families in such a normal way. She said, and I can't believe how I got used to it. I got used to not seeing women and girls represented. And she ordered, I don't even know how many calendars for her family and friends, because she was like, people don't understand what's happening here. They don't understand what's wrong. And she ordered them, and anyway, my point is we have community-based projects to involve the community, to help people be part of the solution and grow from there, right? Because when you see that you can be part of the solution, you call up your kid's school and you say, hey, where are the pictures of the girls? You call up your shul and you're like, what's going on? Where are the female speakers? Hey, I want to be on the board and I want to help make decisions. And it really does expand from there. I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to say we have a bunch of community-based programs, including helping Avunot, helping to change the Jewish divorce process, and to help the community get more justice for women. Unfortunately, it's a whole nother story that I'm happy to discuss anytime. I'll answer any questions. But the point is, our work is with the community because that is where it matters, and we are global. And yeah.
Amazing.
I feel like I should just
you're going to have a sequel, I think. But we're going to power through because I have a few more really juicy questions, and a few are coming into me. So I'm going to combine some. So one is about like how you measure your impact, right? You've been at this for 4 years, and I think, you know, maybe it's what you just said about empowering the community and people are advocating for change and you're starting to see change. But I'd love to hear about that, and just more generally, you know, how is your work perceived by the Orthodox community there?
So it's kind of interesting. I think the wonderful thing is, as I said in the beginning, is the collaboration. So like a lot of the people that you've actually funded, I have worked with before, not in this framework. Here in Israel and in America, a lot of the organizations, I've worked with them, and we combine our resources, our networking, our powers, meaning our strengths, to make that work wider and better. And I see people having so much more awareness. We started off by saying change on the ground begins with changing the conversation. When we started out, it was literally only men talking about issues within Orthodoxy. If there was a woman talking about it, she was doing it on her own and with, you know, an invitation because somebody knew her. There was no one in that blogosphere or in that social media that was hitting from the female, not hitting, but pointing out the female perspective and saying, actually, that's not right, or there's the problem with that. So first of all, the conversation has changed dramatically. People are so much more aware of the damages of the erasure of women and of the marginalization of women, of having women not in the conversation. So I see that on a daily basis, whether it's people messaging me saying, I'm trying to deal with this in my shul now. Can you give me the right words to use? Or guess what we just did, you know, letting me know how, I got a message from a woman. It knocked me off my feet. She said, if I hadn't heard your podcast and read your articles and heard the words that you used, I would have been an aguna. She said, but I knew how, a chained marriage, because I knew how to advocate for myself. And I believe that I should advocate for myself. I got my get and my friends did not. And I see the difference in knowing the words. I see the difference in believing in my rights. I see the difference in knowing what I'm talking about and believing that I have the right to say something. That to me is everything. And seeing the change of behavior of people who are canceling their subscriptions, people who are writing letters. I mean, this stuff it's funny because on the one hand, it's like so basic, but on the other hand, when you have thousands of people doing this in a small community, it's huge. The impact is huge. So the magazines, by the way, that erase women, they're starting to put women back in. There's a huge backlash now. There's a huge backlash now. So I do see the difference. And I would say, at first, our work was received as you hate Haredim. You're not really religious. All the crap that people would say to a woman who isn't happy with the status quo, right? There's no real Scotsman. And at first I was like, what? And now I'm just like, bring it. Like, I love it so much now because it means that A, I'm bothering you, and B, it's the death throes of a patriarchal dinosaur society where women are becoming more and more involved. And I think I would just like to say we have a balancing act in Chokhmah Nashim, because we are, as much as I might privately say, let's burn down the patriarchy, at the end of the day, I sometimes work with the patriarchy. Why? Because they're right now still in charge. And if I want to save the people who are underneath their boot, so to speak, I have to work with them. And I'm fine with that. Meaning, I'm not too proud to work with people that I see as my opponent. I'm not like, I don't believe in that. I mean, I don't believe in it because it doesn't really make change. And at the end of the day, if I'm going to make change, I have to, I won't tell you I'll work with everyone. I will tell you that I do a lot of bypassing. Someone asked me, and I spoke last week, and someone asked me, like, what do you do if like someone's standing in front of you and like someone's opposing you? I'm like, I take a step to the left and then a step forward. Like, I don't even engage. I'm just like, bye, because I don't have time for that, you know? So I think it's for a lot of us, whatever your advocacy is in, sometimes it's just not worth it. You just got to walk around them.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because you say it's a balancing act, and I would also imagine like there's a balancing act between the urgency that you feel to wanting to make the change and the impatience of wanting it now, and also the recognition that lasting social change really takes time. So how do you balance those two kind of opposing forces?
So I think it's important to realize that in this country, there has been already tremendous change for women. I think in the past 20, 30 years, you can see in the Beit Din and the rabbinic courts, when women have, and it's both, by the way, it is a combination of getting the community together and using the Supreme Court, getting women into the rabbinic courts as advocates has been huge. Susan Weiss had what to do with that in the beginning. And once women get in there, and they are seen no longer as the wanting to burn everything down, but rather as a potential partner, even if it's a hesitant or reticent partner, things do change. They really do change. I have seen the change myself. I have seen the victories. And so it's saying to yourself, you're not going to see it tomorrow, and you have to fight like hell. Like, you can never be complacent and say, okay, if the change takes time. No, you have to fight like you want it now, and you still have to recognize that it does take time. But the thing with the change that takes time is that is the stuff that doesn't backslide. That is the stuff that sticks. Once you change someone's understanding, and it's not so scary if women are on boards. It's not so scary if women have access to Gemara. Then you're not going to go backwards from that. And that is when you know you've made it. And so it is a balancing act. It is difficult. It's something that you have to, you know, I mean, I drink. I'm not going to lie.
So, you know, American Jewry is so, you know, so many are concerned about what's going on in Israel and wondering what they can do. So what would you say to American Jews who want to support social change in Israel? How can they help the movement?
So I think that it's really important to understand that the women within the community are the ones who are going to make the change. As I said, we understand the fears. We understand the motivators. We understand the red lines. We understand that you can't always bust down the door. Sometimes you have to knock a lot to get in, because everybody has their triggers, right? Everybody has their trigger words. Everybody has their worries. Everybody has their certain things that are going to turn them off to something. And we have to understand that if we want to make change, it's going to come from the women inside. It's going to come from the women who, first of all, are, I don't want to say in charge of, but we are guiding the next generation, right? My sons are asking questions that my husband never asked, that other men never asked, that it's something that they're looking. You know, my son actually came to me the other day and he told me something his teacher said, and he saw my face and he goes, mommy, I promise you the rabbi's not sexist. And I had to say to him, I'm sure he's not, sweetheart, but I'd still like to explain to you what's actually happening, you know. But it is important, at the risk of being insensitive, there are certain ways and places that will promise you that they're going to make change, or that will say, if you fund us, we're going to knock this down. It's not going to, it will never happen. It will never happen. There's just too much at play here. And you have to, I beg of the people who want to see a Jewish and democratic country to trust the Orthodox feminists who are fighting this every single day, day in and day out, who are working hard, who are accepting the things they can change and working on those things and saving the other things for another day. Give us your belief and your support and let us do that work, because honestly, at the end of the day, we're the ones who are most affected by it, literally every single day. And we appreciate your belief and your support in the work that we do.
It's so true. And I think that's something that we really value at Illuminate. And we look to you all. You are, almost 50 now, Jules, who are doing exactly that. Like, you're either part of the community or you're working with the community and listening to what the community needs and going from the inside out. And so we empower you to empower your communities, and hopefully that's how change happens. We have such little time, and I have 2 meaty questions for you to sort of round out our conversation. And again, this is you speaking, but what are your hopes for the future of the state of Israel vis-a-vis women's rights? I mean, just like we could have spent the whole hour on that, right?
Sure. What are my hopes? Honestly, it's actually a really easy question. In order to make sure that Israel is a country of all of her citizens, where everyone is treated with respect and dignity and everyone's rights are upheld, you simply have to have everyone at the table. And right now, there are not enough women at the table. We need more. We need Haredi women at the table. We need more religious women at the table. We need more disabled at the table. We need more minorities at the table. We need more people who are actually impacted by the decisions that are made to be at the table. I think once that happens, everything else is going to fall much more in line. Because as I said, the people who say to me, you don't understand, this is about tradition, I'm not going to impact that person in a way that is going to, even if I change his mind, it's not going to change the country. The country needs to be run by and with everyone who's involved. So what I want to see is everyone involved, so that we can creatively and with the passion and love. The one thing I will say is that everyone on the streets loves this country. People kind of forget that. Like, everyone on the street wants this country to be the best it can be. We just don't have the same vision. So once we see that we are actually coming, ironically, from the same place, then we need to sit down and say, okay, you're here, I'm here, how do we get here?
I love that. Thank you. And finally, because I think you alluded to it earlier, but, how has being part of the collective impacted your leadership? And, you've already talked a little bit about how you've leveraged relationships, but if you could just share a little bit, that would be great.
First of all, being part of the collective on a very personal level has made me feel less alone. I mean, if I'm just going to be really, really, really honest, it's made me feel less alone and less alone in this fight. It's made me feel like I have people behind me. It's enabled me to, at the beginning, when I was first chosen for this, the questionnaire says, what kind of leader are you? And talks about your leadership skills and things like that. And I had an extremely difficult time with that. I don't see myself as a leader. I didn't see myself as a leader. I think you have forced me in a very loving way to see myself and accept the fact that I'm a leader and the responsibility that comes along with it, and the need to I've always collaborated, but the need to ask for help in ways that I may not have been comfortable with before or wanted to acknowledge before, vulnerability, things like that, and given me access to other people to whom I can either fetch with or get real professional assistance from. I mean, that's on a personal level, right? Like on a practical organizational level, your funding of our work, and specifically the professional development grant, which I find to be a very unique and very faith-based, I'll explain what I mean, gift, because you're allowing us to decide what we need. You're giving us the funds to say, this is what's going to make me a better leader, even if nobody else would see that. You know, someone might be able to get budgets, and someone might be. I've been taking one-on-one Hebrew lessons because that's what I need to advocate better in this country. And you've allowed me to do that. And that has literally been the most impactful thing that I've been able to do for my work in 3 or 4 years. So that's a very vulnerable answer.
Thank you so much, Shoshanna. It's been such a joy to talk to you. I'm so fired up. I'm ready to like take on the world after listening to you for an hour. So thank you for all that you do in Israel, but really, really around the globe, because that's what you're doing. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I think I would just like to say that if anyone wants to be involved in our work, if anybody wants to know more about our work, I'm very available. You can go on our website, you can go on the Jewish Life Photo Bank, you can go on our Facebook or our Instagram, whatever, and I'm around. I see all these questions. I feel really bad. Should I try to answer them in 2 minutes?
There was so much. There was so much.
I hate to be the one to cut off this conversation because I could listen to you all day, Shoshanna. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and extraordinary story. We'll make sure that everyone on this call can reach out if they do have additional questions, if you're comfortable with that, Shoshanna.
Sure, of course.
Great. And like Shoshanna said, we'll be sending some action items like Shoshanna's photo bank and podcast and so many other resources for you to get involved in her work if you're interested. But I want to thank you, Shoshanna, for sharing your story and your wisdom with us and your fire. It was really evident, and I know I'm inspired by you and your work. And thank you, Rachel, for leading this conversation for us today. Like I said, you'll receive a follow-up with plenty more actions that you can take. We offer these sessions at no cost to you, but if you do find value in what we're doing, we hope that you'll make 2 donations today. The first one to support Shoshanna at Chochmat Nashim, and the second to Illuminate. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, please buy your ticket now to our gala luncheon on May 24th, in person in New York City and online. There you'll have the opportunity to meet more members of the collective, just like Shoshanna, celebrate our global network and bold Jewish women changemakers, and honor Debbie Cosgrove, Illuminate's immediate past president. We also will have raffle prizes, and you don't want to miss it. We will drop a link to the registration in the chat, as well as Melissa Rosen's contact information. Please reach out if you have questions. Finally, the next in our Crown Jewel Conversation series will take place on Thursday, June 1st with Elizabeth Mandel, the founder and executive director of J Girls Plus magazine. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you soon.